to talk a little bit about what to expect when you go visit your elected officials. One of the best ways to be effective is knowing not just a generic issue, not, oh, I'm here to talk about marriage, or I'm here to talk about the life issue, but having specific bill numbers that you can go to the staff member or the elected official and say, I'm concerned about this bill, I want this bill to pass, and knowing whether that particular bill is in a committee, whether it's had a hearing, whether it's sitting in calendars, kind of a procedural stance. And so that information you can find from all of our respective organizations. We keep a list of our priority legislation and on our websites and in paper forms, and I'm sure we all probably have some here with us today. The next thing is all of the members are really busy at this point. They are on the floor several hours during the day, and then they are going to committee meetings either before they meet or after they meet. And so if you walk into your state rep or senator's office, the staff will probably say they're not available, they're in committee. And that is true. So we, always when you're coming to the Capitol, it's best to try to call ahead and identify yourself as a constituent and say, hey, I would really like to have a moment. If they don't have a moment, there's another option that you can ask. It's called asking them to come off the floor. And that's where the staff member will take you to the floor and they'll send a little note in to their boss saying, hey, we've got a family from your district in town. Can you come outside and meet with them? And that'll give you an opportunity to, shake their hands and give your 30-second, not minute, pitch to them on why you're there and what you're concerned about. And constituents coming to talk about the issues. I mean, yes, we like to think that, our organizations are effective. But the best mouthpiece is those who are engaged and paying attention back home. And so, you can make a tremendous difference by just calling, emailing, coming to visit, bringing a couple of your friends, co-workers, telling them about what's going on and asking them to take action. So those are some little points when you go into an office. If you do happen to actually get a moment with your state representative or senator at this time during session, a tactic that they might use to kind of stall and not talk about the issue while you're really there is they'll want to show you every memento on the wall. They'll, oh, here's my picture with Reagan, and all this stuff to try to dwindle down the time. And then the next thing you know, the next appointment showing up, or they got to rush off to committee because they're laying out a bill. So, getting in there, knowing what bill numbers you're talking about, and what message you're trying to convey to them in a 2-minute window will really serve to be the best way at communicating with your elected official on that issue. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Tony brought up about our floor action on the pro-life issue last week. So we haven't had a pro-life bill on the floor of the House yet this session, and as Tony mentioned, time is dwindling down. And some of our hardcore members are understandably upset about not having any pro-life victories on the floor in this session yet. And there's a thing in Texas called sunset, and what that means is every 10 years or so, each state agency is subject to review by the legislature. So they're asking the question, should the Department of Health, should the Department of Insurance, the Health and Human Services Commission, should these agencies be reauthorized? And if so, what steps can we take to minimize the costs to make agencies more effective? But the brilliant thing about these sunset bills is that under the rules, virtually any topic that relates to that agency's powers or duties is germane. So they serve as a vehicle, an excellent vehicle for the minority to put legislation that they otherwise cannot get through the regular committee process on to these sunset bills. This process is how we got the parental consent law in Texas requiring parental consent before minors undergo an abortion procedure. It was tacked on to a sunset bill in 2003 or 2005, I forget which one, and that's how we got parental consent, because otherwise it would not have made it through the entire legislative process. Well, representative came to us and had some ideas and filed some amendments to this this sunset bill on Thursday or Wednesday. I don't remember which day it was. And asked for our help. Of course, I would love to support these pro-life amendments to the sunset bill. One of these bills, these amendments, would have closed a loophole that currently exists in all of our states' pro-life laws. The sonogram law, House Bill 2, the 20-week ban, which allows for abortions in circumstances where the unborn child is perceived to have a disability or what they call an anomaly. And this loophole is an exception, and we treat, most people don't realize this, but we treat under Texas pro-life laws babies who may have a disability as different than everyone else. We consider that to be tragic. We've never had a vote on this sort of exception on the House floor because once these pro-life bills get to the House floor, historically, they already have this exception in them. They've been negotiated as required by the chairman of the committees that they're sitting in, saying, unless you put this exception in that allows for the abortion of disabled babies, we're not passing your bill out of committee. And so members haven't been forced yet to vote on this issue. Well, the Department of State Health Services contracts with abortion providers, and therefore discussing this was germane on the sunset bill. So there was a point of order on germaneness, and that was overruled, and they did the motion to table to close this loophole. And they voted on closing this loophole. There were several Republicans who not only voted to keep this exception, to continue allowing killing of unborn babies who may have a disability, but one of them even went up to the front mic and delivered this eloquent 5-minute tirade over how these situations must be dealt with. We were sitting in the gallery, and this representative is J.D. Sheffield from Stephenville, Gatesville area. He's a DO, and he came to the front and just went on this tirade about how unborn babies with disabilities are situations that we have to take care of. It was flabbergasting. The next day, Planned Parenthood sent out an email that said, J.D. Sheffield stands up. We couldn't agree with him more. A Republican who Planned Parenthood is agreeing with. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to see that. But those are the kind of I'm pro-life, but things that we see in the Capitol, and are things that have to be addressed legislatively, politically, and that's it was a great vote. It was a great vote to see where members who've never had to specifically rule on this issue, where their hearts lie, and we were very grateful to have this vote. However, as Tony pointed out, the Democrats had a valid point of order. Well, Tony doesn't think it's valid. I have no idea. I'm not the person.
Well, you want me to comment on it?
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, not to give like the second Tony show. So, all right. So the point of order was arguably valid. They created this rule, two sessions in 2011, I think. Might have been 2013. No, it was 2013's last session. To put in what is called, it was an old rule that used to exist. They got rid of it and they brought it back. It's called substantial compliance. The rule was to say, if there was, if the rule on committee documents was substantially complied with and the mistake was not misleading, then the point of order could be overruled. And to me, as I was sitting watching this debate, and I'm saying, well, this is it's a big bill, it's very important to the legislature, pro-life amendments in it. And our gotcha point is whether an "and" is included on page 219 of the, well, it's like 219 of the bill. It was probably, page 28 of the amendment of the analysis. And there's this missing "and" that literally no one read other than the lawyer who was looking for these kind of things. I thought, this is the first time that I've seen it where it really, if you're going to have the rule, this is the time you use the rule. They didn't do that.
They didn't actually rule on the point of order. So what Strauss did is, instead of ruling on the point of order, and it would have functionally done the exact same thing, except the members would have had more rights. There was about a 45-minute delay, some kind of negotiation, and because it's not that complicated of a question, you're going to go one way or the other on it. They come out and they say, "I recognize Representative Martinez Fisher." He walks to the microphone and says, "I withdraw the point of order." And you're thinking, "Wow, what did he give that guy?" So Representative Price walks up there. "Well, got to work on the bill, so I'm moving to recommit the bill to committee." If the point of order had been sustained, it would have been sent back to committee. Instead, they withdrew the point of order and sent it by motion back to the committee. Same functional thing, exact same result as had they sustained the point of order. But here's what it did. A, Strauss didn't have to get his hands dirty because he didn't have to sustain a point of order over the question of the word and not use this tool that's in his tool chest of substantial compliance, which they almost certainly would use in a circumstance where leadership wanted a bill or wanted to use it. I mean, it's basically, that's the problem with that rule, is it just gives discretion, an immense amount of discretion over the rules to the speaker, just to overrule legitimate things when he wants to. The other thing is, the members technically get to decide points of order. 10 members can appeal the ruling of the chair, and that can go down to the floor, and then the members can say, well, we're going to vote on whether we think the missing and on page 28 is bad enough that we need to send the document back to be fixed, or can we say, well, we've substantially complied and ignore the missing and. That could have happened had they sustained the point of order, and I think the members knew that. I think there probably was some movement to do that. But by this little mechanism where they have point of order withdrawn, they and then recommit the bill, you basically sustained the point of order and cut off the right of members to appeal that ruling. So it's just another occurrence where the speaker, and he's done this a couple times now, has done things to try to cut off the members from checking his decisions and changing what his final decision is.
If there's a so-called flaw in the bill, missing and, as example, and withdraws the point of order, it's still a flaw, though, isn't it?
Well, so that's correct. If this is an interesting thing, if it went to third reading, the ruling, if it got voted through, the ruling would be, well, that was with the committee documents. That issue has been cured by the vote on the floor. If it gets sent back to the committee, then the committee has the ability to go in and alter the analysis document and add the and then kick it back out, and then it's fixed. And so that's why most bills, whenever a point of order is sustained, generally that's a creation, that's something that's in the committee's report. Even if it's something that maybe predates it, it's reflected in the committee's report. And so it's a flaw in the committee process, so it goes back to the committee for the committee to fix their issue and then vote it back out. So that's why that works that way.
Because Representative Schaefer from Tyler is the one who offered this amendment, and he withstood immense pressure to pull down his amendment. And the fact that he stood strong and made several representatives made pro-life speeches on the floor about how this is a serious issue, and they basically expressed their displeasure at pro-life bills not being on the House floor yet. They said, if we would not have to do this, we would not have to attach a sunset bill if we were confident that we were going to have real pro-life gains this legislative session. And I think that message is the strongest, and we're extremely proud of the members like Representative Schaefer who stood up and said, I'm not backing down. This is my one chance. I came here to protect life, and you're not allowing me to do that. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to try. So that's some of the big action we had last week. We've got miraculously after that. Sometimes the big stick may work. We've had 2 hearings scheduled for this week with our priority bills, which have not happened before. And so that's just kind of everyone starts at the end of session to be like, whoa, what are we actually going to get out of the session? And seeing the frustration right now. Mr. Graham?
Can I ask you a question? Do you know anything about the bill, House Bill 3008 on wrongful birth, cause of action?
Is that Simmons?
Being heard today?
It is being heard today. I'm not too familiar with the bill. There's two versions out there.
The language it's only one page, and the one paragraph, the language is so full of double negatives that I can't figure out if it's good or bad.
I think the intent is good.
Okay.
I do think the intent is good. There's another bill out there by Representative Pena who more has fully addresses wrongful birth lawsuits.
Okay.
So I think there is a movement a little bit to combine some of that language to make Representative Simmons feel a little bit more clear.
Okay, thank you.
That's good.
This is good. Good.
Let me give you a startling fact. Not one pro-life bill has been passed, regular pro-life substantial bill has been passed in Texas since 2003. I'll repeat that. Not one regular substantial pro-life bill has been passed since 2003. That is 12 years of Republican leadership failure. The Republicans have massive majorities in the House and the Senate, but they haven't passed it. The two bills that were passed recently, the one, the sonogram bill, was because it was designated emergency legislation by Governor Rick Perry, and the omnibus bill because Governor Rick Perry again forced two special sessions to get that bill through so that the games that were being played by Republicans in name only could be trumped and stopped. So in the State House, not one of Texas Right to Life's pro-life pieces of priority legislation has had a hearing. Now, some minor bills that address some of the things that we want to see done in a weaker fashion have been heard, and we're hoping that some of these bills will be augmented with stronger legislation in the next few weeks. But I think it has been mentioned that these bills have got to be passed out of the committee by May 11th, go to Calendar's committee, and then be out of the House by the 14th. The clock is ticking. And you know what? The Senate, where we did so much good, where we removed two Republican and name-only senators and changed the whole tenor, they haven't done any better. They've had one hearing on one pro-life bill just yesterday. And it's a great pro-life bill. It's Larry Taylor's insurance bill to remove the funding of abortion from all forms of insurance. But we've had one hearing on one pro-life bill in the Senate. And we are often told that Texas is the most pro-life state in America. Well, we all told that going into the primaries. What a great legislature we have. The fact is, when rated by Americans United for Life, we're not number 1. We're actually number 10, and we're falling. We used to be number 4 a few years ago. Things are getting worse. So when people say everything's fine, it's just not. Now here's another statistic to consider. The Senate has passed 400 bills. The House has passed a paltry 200. 600 bills have been passed, but not one pro-life bill. Maybe one gun bill has been passed on both sides, not our issue, but really that's what you always hear about the conservatives, right? Guns and right to life. 600 bills, and when you take the top 2 issues that these men and women will campaign on, they've passed 2 bills out of 600. That's what they really think about the Republican platform. So let me give you a football analogy. NFL has a draft. A lot of times you get a Todd Marinovich or players that look great and they go in and they just don't do the job. Occasionally you get a Brady, low pick, but ends up being phenomenal. Who do you keep? The fact is you keep the Bradys, you keep the All-Stars, but you have to make cuts. The NFL is about winning. It's not about suiting up and showing up and just being out there. It is a brutal sport where all that matters is winning. And we have to look at passing pro-life legislation or whatever your issue is the same way. In the next 570 days before the start of the 85th session, 120,000 unborn children will be killed. 120,000 are going to be killed in the next 570 plus 30 days unless that building over there does something in the next 35 days. If this is the NFL, we've gone through 75% of our time, we're in the fourth quarter, and we're behind. We should be running up the score. We should be passing as many pieces of pro-life conservative legislation in Texas that the liberals passed in New York and California. You think the liberals pass one liberal piece of legislation in California every 2 years? They are passing everything possible. We should be passing everything possible on the conservative issues in our state every single year. This should be the testing ground where every one of us bring legislation that we want to take up to the Supreme Court to see how much further we can advance the conservative cause. So we have 5 weeks left. We are in the fourth quarter. We are definitely behind. It can still be done. There can be substantial pieces of pro-life legislation passed. But if we don't pass these pieces of legislation, it's time to cut some players. And in fact, it might be time to get rid of the head coach and the upper management. That's what a sports team would do. That's what an army would do. We are dealing with 120,000 children who will die. We are dealing with taxes that will not go down, gun rights that will not be secured, liberty that will not be protected, and governments that will grow if something isn't done. So it will not be personal, but if we do not win in the next 5 weeks, it will be incumbent upon us to change the players who are on the field. So, thank you for your time.
Hey, quick question, Jim. Do you have a Tom Landry hat? Because I'd like to see you in a Tom Landry,